Hey there, Skullheads. I'm Snags.
And I'm Ol Silky.
And we are talking about Boardwalk Empire tonight. One of the best TV shows in the history of mankind ever.
It really is just amazing. You've got your period piece, the roaring 20s. People all the way back just have a romantic relationship with the 20s, and it's 100 years ago. It's crazy to think.
It's back when some of our favorite politicians were born. So before we jump into that, make sure to follow us on Spotify and subscribe on YouTube. And now we're going to jump into Boardwalk Empire. You want to start telling us a little bit about the cat this series was based on?
Sure. So Boardwalk Empire, the show, was taken from a book called The Birth, High Times, and Corruption of Atlantic City by Nelson Johnson. And that mentions historical criminal kingpin Enoch L. Johnson, which is portrayed as Nucky Thompson in the show. But Enoch Lewis Nucky Johnson was born in 1883, died December 9th of 1968. He was 85 years old. He actually dies in a convalescent home. So he was able, amidst all of that corruption and rubbing elbows with the thugs and the mafia or whatever, he was able to live his life out to 1968. And he was an Atlantic City political boss, sheriff of Atlantic County, businessman, crime boss. You have to think about it being just a clean slate, an empty canvas, and these guys just got into politics and did whatever they wanted. And it's funny to me to think that they can't do that anymore.
What do you mean? They absolutely do that now.
Exactly. But these people go, oh no, all the
right. Yeah, back in the old days when people were corrupt. Yeah.
It's not corrupt anymore. We've got checks and balances. Okay.
They'll be doing TV shows about these crooks 100 years from now.
Yeah. So he basically just ran the political scene that controlled Atlantic City and the Atlantic County government from 1910 to 1941. So it was bootlegging, gambling, and prostitution that was their staple. In 1886, Johnson's father was elected sheriff of Atlantic County, New Jersey, and he did a 3-year term, but he had 2 cohorts who were also placed, and between the 3 of them, they had a little empire in 1886. So, 23 years after the Civil War, they've got this little city right on the ocean, and it was anything goes all the way back. And the sheriff and his political cohorts, they basically did whatever they wanted. If you opposed them, it would have been nothing to just bury you on the beach between Delaware and New York, right there, miles of beach. Nobody, there's nothing out there. And you see that on the show. They take somebody out there and there's just nothing but you could have done anything.
Well, it's like in Vegas where, you piss off the wrong people, they take you out in the desert and they come back without you.
Yeah. Oh, he left. I don't know where he went. But 1905, Nucky becomes undersheriff in Mays Landing, Atlantic City, New Jersey. 1908, he's elected sheriff and holds this office till 1911. So his father just passed the baton, and probably in a way kept things going. And by 1911, he's ousted from the sheriff, but then continues his political stronghold. And then Prohibition comes in 1919 to 1933. Well, Nucky's generating $500,000 a year. That's about $9 million in today's money, with bootlegging, gambling, and prostitution.
Nice.
So, and what people may not know about Atlantic City,
we picked the wrong careers.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Atlantic City was a tourist destination. So the city leaders knew for it to remain successful that certain laws couldn't be applied. So during Prohibition, it was perfectly fine to go order alcohol in Atlantic City. So it was nothing for people to ship alcohol out of Atlantic City and then go to your speakeasies and whatever and do their thing. But that was the whole industry for them. Johnson permitted the service of alcohol on Sundays, gambling, prostitution in exchange for payment of protection money. The whole scenario that you see. But during Prohibition, he was pulling down $500,000 a year. So they referred to Atlantic City as the world's playground. They had slot machines, whiskey, anything anything you wanted. It was all there. So that was Nucky Johnson. One last thing he did. There was a property lien filed against him in 1933. They got him on tax evasion. So
same way they got Al Capone.
Yeah. He went away in 1941, and August 11th, 1941, he went into the Lewisburg Federal Penitentiary. And he was fined $20,000 and did 10 years in prison. So, but by the time you come out in 51, it's a new world. World War II's over, and I'm sure he had enough things planted that he basically just cruise control till 68 when he died in a convalescent home.
Yeah, the word is when he basically kept his nose clean when he came out, and if he had money stashed away, it wasn't. The authorities never really found out about it, and they weren't really harassing him. But he did his best to stay out of trouble after he got out.
And that's the thing is you have enough connections. Hey, let's put them up here. Let's put them up there. We'll get them this or that.
Right.
Keep your nose clean. Meanwhile, here's $20,000 for keeping your mouth shut when you're.
Here's a sweet property deal or something. Yeah. So basically, you mentioned that book, and basically what happened was an executive at HBO read that book about the history of Atlantic City, and wanted to do something with it. Somehow she got Martin Scorsese attached to it as producer. And there was this cat who worked on The Sopranos named Terrence Winter, and she basically gives him the book, and she says, she says, read this book, see if you can find anything in here that'd make a good series. And it's a whole book about the entire history of Atlantic City. In the Prohibition era with Nucky Johnson is just a small part of the book.
Who did she give the book to? Terrence
Terrence Winter.
Winter.
And so he's walking out of the office. She didn't mention anything about Scorsese. She just had a meeting with him. He'd worked on The Sopranos. She gives him the book. She said, if you can find anything in this book that would make a good series, let's talk about it. You could be the showrunner. And he's not sure. It looks like a dry history book. And he's headed out the office. And right as he's about to walk out the door, she says, oh, and by the way, Marty Scorsese's attached to it. And he looks back at her and says, oh, I'll definitely find something in this book that'll make a good series. Don't worry about that. Please. And so he reads through the book and gets to and again, it's a lot of just history of Atlantic City, history shit. And then he gets to the Prohibition era, and you've got Lucky Luciano and Al Capone coming to town, and Nucky Johnson at the center of it all. He's like, this is it. So he writes a pilot and sends it to Scorsese, who by now he's in touch with because, he's been announced as, the possible showrunner if the script's good enough. Scorsese was just going to executive produce it. And Scorsese calls him and goes, this pilot is really good. He says, I think I might want to direct this.
That's tremendous.
And he said
Scorsese is a star magnet. I mean, if he's on board, who doesn't want to jump in,
Yeah. He said he was just floored. And the HBO, and he says, well, have you told HBO you wanted to direct it yet? And he goes, no, that's my next phone call. So about 30 minutes later, he gets a text from that HBO executive, and all the text is just about 20 exclamation points, and that's it. Like, holy shit, he's going to direct the pilot episode.
Yeah.
And he said as part of the preparation for this, and I want to dig into Terrence Winter's history a little bit, but I just want to kind of get people buttered up understanding who he is first. So as part of the preparation, him and another guy from his team, I think it might have been Tim Van Patten, are invited to Martin Scorsese's personal screening room. And they spend a whole day watching gangster flicks with Martin Scorsese commenting on them as they watch them. He said they were just elbowing each other like kids in a fucking candy store,
That's just ridiculous, man.
But I want to talk a little bit about Terrence Winter because really he's the driving force for all 5 seasons of this thing. He was the showrunner. He's like David Chase was for The Sopranos.
Right.
Terrence Winter was for Boardwalk Empire. So Terrence is born in 1960 in Brooklyn, New York. Graduates from New York University with a degree in English. Earned a law degree from St. John's University School of Law. He practiced law briefly and moved to Los Angeles in 1991 to pursue writing full-time. It's interesting because my wife has a little group of friends. It was this book club she belonged to, and most of them were lawyers, and a lot of them wanted to be writers. It's just it's an interesting thing that the whole lawyers wanting to be writers thing is pretty common.
Right.
But so this guy moves to LA in 91 to pursue writing, does a lot of crap. Check out his resume of crap. This is just what you have to do to get in the business. He's writing on a TV series called Sister Sister in 1995. He writes for a different series, The Great Defender, Xena Warrior Princess, The Cosby Mysteries, Diagnosis.
Oh, wow.
Diagnosis.
The Cosby Mysteries?
Yeah, Diagnosis Murder. I guess The Cosby Mysteries is like...
Yeah, I woke up in bed and I don't remember...
What happened to me when I was asleep? That's the Cosby Mystery.
Why am I wet from the waist down? What's happening?
Why does my coochie hurt? So and then to top it all off, he was permanent. So he wrote as a freelancer on all those quality shows we just mentioned, and then he joined the permanent writing staff of The New Adventures of Flipper in 1995. So really just top shelf apex of creativity. It's like this is like Kurosawa, Hitchcock level stuff.
Our next 4-part series needs to be on the
New Adventures of Flipper. Yeah.
Yeah.
That deserves
the old Adventures of Flipper.
Yeah. And that if the Beatles got 3 episodes, the New Adventures of Flipper needs at least 4, maybe 5.
Yeah. Each actor, branch off.
Yeah. And we could do another 5-part series on the New Monkeys. All these great,
Yeah, it's a lot. There's so much.
Yeah.
You guys got to stick around. We've got
you got to stick around for that. Anyways, so he finally gets a break joining the Sopranos writing team in the 2nd season. He actually knew somebody, I think it might have been Tim Van Patten, who got to write during the 1st season. And and he was just a little late to the party. David Chase knew who Terrence Winter was, but here he comes, El Condor.
Oh, El Condor.
Pimp that website, buddy.
Go right now. We got shirts, hoodies, mugs, maybe. T-shirts, stickers, plushies, maybe.
Wow.
Go Pops.
Wow.
Lunchboxes.
Yeah,
pinball machines.
In our logo.
Snags
and my father's face. And
Snags and Silky action figures.
Yeah.
That's tremendous.
Yeah, wiffle ball bats. Right. Whatever you want.
There you go.
Thanks.
Our flags that we may have.
Hey, would you throw that away?
Oh, yeah.
2 hands. Hold that away.
Yeah,
Checks in the mail, buddy.
Righty. There you did that.
Do that.
Go ahead. See ya. Shut the door. Wow. All right.
So he joins the Sopranos writing team in the 2nd season. He had a friend that was on the writing staff the 1st season, was talking him up a little bit. And after the 1st season, David Chase is kind of reorganizing. And he's like, all right, tell me about this Terrence Winter guy. He gets on for the 2nd season, quickly becomes one of the show's most prolific and acclaimed writers. He wrote or co-wrote 25 episodes over the series run.
Yeah, so Boardwalk Empire, 5 seasons, 56 episodes.
Yeah, I'm talking about the Sopranos.
Oh, Sopranos, sorry.
Yeah, so 25 episodes over the Sopranos run.
Wow.
Served as an executive producer for the final 3 seasons, so that's where he's starting to get a little bit of that showrunner experience.
Right.
For his work, the Emmy Awards on the show, Outstanding Drama Series 2004, 2007, Outstanding Writing for a Drama Series, that's more where he's contributing, 2004, 2006. His notable episodes, and I know you're going to like this, Pine Barrens. He wrote Pine Barrens.
Great one.
Long-term Parking, where what's her name gets murdered. Andrea gets murdered, gets offed because she's by Silvio, dragged out of the car, out of frame and shot.
Yeah. Oh, that was a rough one.
And The Second Coming. So he basically comes into his own working on The Sopranos. This is where people start taking him seriously, right?
Right.
So gets on Boardwalk Empire, showrunner and head writer for all 5 seasons. Won the Writers Guild of America Award for television news series in 2011. The show won multiple Emmys and Golden Globes under his leadership. And the research and attention to detail, if you watch the show, if you haven't seen it, it's just, and even if you're watching it a second time, I've seen the whole series twice. And just the detail in that series and the things you learn about how things were back in the 20s.
Oh, yeah.
It's amazing. The interesting thing is, so he starts this in 2010. Not too long after that, he starts writing another script for Scorsese, known as The Wolf of Wall Street, which is
Wow.
one of the best screenplays in modern times. I watched that for a second time pretty recently, and it's
Wolf
just
of
so
Wall Street.
hilarious.
If I were running any company, and I was in charge of hiring people, once I hired them, I would literally tell them, you need to watch this movie, and I have you fill out a questionnaire so I know you watched it. Because it's that good. It's that motivational. It is a crucial movie for anyone. There's so much in there, life experience, everything. That is a phenomenal movie.
Yeah, that's a great movie. It's one of the best blends of comedy and like noir drama that I've ever seen, because it is so fucking funny. I was listening.
Just all the stuff it touches on is endless.
There's a couple little mini documentaries we found on YouTube we're going to put in the click pit. One is about Nucky Johnson, who Terrence Winter renames Nucky Thompson for the series because he takes a lot of liberties with the history of the guy. And another one is kind of a mini documentary that was done during season 5, where they just talked to a lot of the people who are involved in the show. And you basically get to hear from Terrence Winter in that as well. But yeah, he said it's not really even there with Wolf of Wall Street and Boardwalk Empire. Man, there's a lot of fun. Gyp Rossetti, that character, the thug from New York who takes over the
yeah, he was a rough dude.
Takes over the town they got to go through to get whiskey to New York in the second season.
Yeah, sets people on fire and shit.
Gets mad, feels insulted when the wind blows. He was hilarious, but also just menacing and intense. And Terrence Winter says in that documentary, he's like, it's not hard to make these guys funny. He's like, when I'm writing, I'm not even trying to make them funny. They just get themselves into these ridiculous situations.
Oh yeah,
that just are funny from our perspective,
Yeah, if you watch anything on Gotti or any of the 5 families, there's certain situations that come up that are, like you say, just hilarious, and they know a little bit, but they're a different type of cloth. They're they may be schooled a little bit and come off somewhat knowledgeable, but they're also gonna get irritated and slice your throat and pull your tongue out and wrap it around like a necktie.
Yeah.
So
he also did some writing for contributed to the script for Get Rich or Die Tryin', which is 50 Cent's semi-autobiographical film. And then there's an HBO series called Vinyl that he created with Martin Scorsese and Mick Jagger. Did you ever see any of that?
Yeah, Vinyl was pretty good.
I'll have to look it up, see if it's on Max.
It should be on Max. Another one that it's not the same, but it's about the porn industry. And it was
the one about Times Square.
Yeah,
with James Franco.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a great series.
That had three seasons, and that was great.
That was really good.
There's another series. A woman starts basically a male version of Playboy, and that series is actually really good. And then due to COVID and everything, I don't know. It was called Minx, and the wife wanted me to watch it with her, and it's actually good. It's not, most men are gonna be like, I'm not watching that shit, and it's actually done just like that James Franco, and I mean it has that same.
Yeah, we gotta look up the name of the James Franco series because I actually had that in my notes as something we might do an episode on. But since you mentioned it, we have to look it up. So I am going to look for it.
Well, you look for it.
Yeah.
I would just to recap: Boardwalk Empire, 5 seasons, 56 episodes. It ran September 19th, 2010, all the way to October 26th, 2014. And I remember with each season, you couldn't wait for the next one. What's crazy is I think a lot of people will come into this show way after it's been gone, and they just binge watch it, and they don't, you don't understand the pain you go through when it's the last episode. And HBO's famous for coming on and saying 2 more episodes till the final season finale, and then that ends, and you might wait a year and a half for the season opener. So,
well, the show we were talking about is The Deuce, so you cats got to check that out. Yeah, it's a great series.
Yeah,
it's basically about the history of the porn industry in Times Square, and it's a historical piece set in the 70s. Really good. But so there's some other people who worked on this. Marky Mark was an executive producer. Yeah. He helped. He worked with HBO on Entourage, so they knew him, and he helped bring the project to HBO. Stephen Levinson was his producing partner. Now, the other guy who had a major hand in the creative aspect of the creative direction and feel of Boardwalk Empire is Tim Van Patten. So Tim Van Patten is the half brother of Dick Van Patten, who was the father in 8 Is Enough. So while Dick Van Patten was a hack actor who's largely forgettable, Tim Van Patten, his younger half brother, is actually a really talented television director.
And Tim Van Patten was always the he kind of had a mullet.
He was before you get into that, he was an actor. And so this is how he knows this, because Tim Van Patten was an actor before. So go ahead.
Yeah, so Tim Van Patten was always played the bad guy. I almost want to say he's very similar looking to the bad guy in Karate Kid. Just California blonde hair. He had a big old mole on the side of his face, and he was in Rock and Roll High School. A Roger Corman in the 70s produced movie, and then a couple other things, but you'd see him basically as the bad kid. I think he was in Little House on the Prairie, but always a bad guy, So it's funny that he goes into directing and he's, his name will pop up on thing. You're like, oh, I know who that is,
Yeah, he's all over the place. So he's born in 1959, also in Brooklyn. Starts his career as an actor in the late 70s, early 80s. He played Mario Salami Petrino in The White Shadow for 3 years.
Oh, the TV show?
Yeah. Remember Salami and White Shadow?
I remember White Shadow.
Yeah. The Master, 1984, not sure what that was. And then True Blue, 1989 to 90. He was Officer Buttons. I never saw that show.
Jeez,
but
no one else did. That's
right. No one else did. So early 90s, he begins directing episodes of TV shows, and his mentor is this guy named Bruce Paltrow, who's a well-known television director. No relation to Gwyneth, I don't think. I looked it up once.
Oh, Jesus.
Or
Tomato.
Early directorial work for Tim Van Patten, episodes of Home Improvement, Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman, and then Touched by an Angel. He did 1,000,000 Touched by an Angel episodes. And then
Well, we've all been touched by an angel.
and then gets basically his big break is The Sopranos. Again, this is probably where he meets Terrence Winter.
Probably.
He ends up directing 20 episodes of The Sopranos. So
Tim Patton.
Yeah, Terrence Winter's writing all this stuff, and Tim Van Patten's directing it.
That's crazy.
He did the series finale, Made in America. The funny thing is, I think it's Tim Van Patten. Yeah, I was listening to an interview with Tim Van Patten, and he said that about that final episode, he said David Chase, comes up with this idea for a final episode where you leave it unresolved, and they all thought it was brilliant. And the person interviewing him on the interview I saw, I was like, well, did anybody question it? And he goes, no, we all thought it was brilliant. So Tim Van Patten goes home for the holidays with a family, one wing of his family. That's like and the finale happens to be on while he's there that weekend. So they all gather in the room. His whole family's around him, 20 people, big family, all excited for the finale. And then when it happens, he said they all fucking turned on him. Good. What the fuck was that? He said he had to slink out of the room pretty quickly.
Dude, we thought, I'll go back. I thought the power went out because the screen just goes black and you're like, oh, what?
Yeah.
I didn't like it. It's lazy. To me, it's lazy.
Yeah. So but I've seen this guy, a lot of the shows that I've watched in probably the last 5 years or so. I've seen this guy's name. He just pops up on the credits all the time. Let's start rattling some off. The Wire, directed 3 episodes, including the pilot. Deadwood, another brilliant show. He did 2 episodes of that.
Tim Van Patten.
Yeah. Rome, which is a great series. He did 4 episodes of that.
Wow.
Game of Thrones, which is a great series until the end, and then the sequel series is just devolved into garbage. But Game of Thrones, the original, he directed the 2nd episode of that series. And then Boardwalk Empire, I think there were like 56 episodes of Boardwalk Empire. Yeah. 19 of those were directed by Tim Van Patten.
God damn.
So almost half the series.
I've heard of it. Yeah.
Yeah, he is really, Terrence Winter's the showrunner, but Tim Van Patten is the guy who's just right-hand vice president of the whole thing, basically. Wow. And he was also one of the executive producers, integral in shaping the visual style of the series. So let's transition over and start talking about the Boardwalk Empire. I was about to call it Board of Thrones, Board of Sopranos. Boardwalk Empire a little bit, the series and the cast members a little bit, but
sure.
As you mentioned, it ran for 5 seasons, September 19th, 2010 to October 26th, 2014, 56 episodes in total. The pilot cost $18 million. They built this gigantic boardwalk set. That was
300-foot boardwalk in an empty lot in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
For $5 million.
Yeah. And the whole episode cost $18 million. That was at the time, that was one of the most expensive episodes in TV history. Subsequent episodes were about $5 million each. The characters in Boardwalk Empire. So in front of the camera, you got stellar talent as well. You got, first of all, Steve Buscemi. I mean, come on. That's like, he really deserves an episode of his own.
Oh, absolutely.
And I mean, I'm guessing everybody listening to this knows who Steve Buscemi is, but let's just rattle off some of the stuff that he's been in. Living in Oblivion, Desperado, Con Air, Armageddon, Ghost World, Big Fish, Death of Stalin, which was a hilarious movie, Miller, and then Coen Brothers flicks, Miller's Crossing, Fargo, Big Lebowski. He's Donnie in the Big Lebowski.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which we got to do a big. Well, we're doing a Coen Brothers episode, so we'll cover it in that. And then these Adam Sandler movies. He's got these little cameo roles in Airheads, Billy Madison, The Wedding Singer, Mr. Deeds. But really, he comes into his own as a leading man. The role of his life. I really think, and I think a lot of people do, probably Buscemi as well. The role of his lifetime was Enoch Nucky Thompson. You know?
Well, I loved him in Trees Lounge. I think that's a big, close to his heart one.
Well, Trees Lounge was he wrote and directed, and it's basically he grows up out. I think that's out in Long Island. He grows up out there, and he was just had no direction. Eventually, he becomes a fireman, and then he gets into acting. But he said Trees Lounge was his vision of what his life would have ended up like if he didn't get into acting.
Wow.
And so it's about this Bukowski-esque barfly who just constantly gets stepping on his own Johnson, ends up making out with the daughter of this tough guy that gets his ass kicked because he's Chloe Sevigny plays the daughter.
Right.
Great. I have that on DVD. It's one of my favorite films.
Yeah, I love that movie.
Yeah. But Steve Buscemi he's just legendary as the lead. Michael Pitt plays Jimmy Darmody for the first couple seasons.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an interesting character and an interesting actor. There's kind of a rumor that the reason why they killed off Jimmy Darmody was that Michael Pitt is difficult to work with.
Well, he's the I can't think of what I've seen him in, but he is a very intense actor, and
he was in the Dreamers. You see the Dreamers with Eva Green?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. He was in that. He was in Ghost in the Shell. He was in Dawson's Creek, which I never watched, but apparently he was in that. He was
I'm not allowed to watch shit like that.
Yeah, he was in the NBC series Hannibal, and he got written out of that early as well. And
Hannibal is unwatchable.
Well, the rumors are that he was just difficult to work with. So
yeah,
I when I first watched Boardwalk Empire, so the first season, you're getting to know Nucky. You're seeing him forming this relationship with Margaret, who ends up moving in with him. And Jimmy Darmody's like Nucky's little protege.
Yeah.
But then the second season, it gets really intense where Jimmy Darmody basically strikes out on his own, forms an alliance with this underling from Chicago that nobody really knows at the time named Al Capone. And he starts getting the support of some of the power structure in Atlantic City, and they want to basically make him their puppet. You know how the powers that be like to choose a candidate, and that's the puppet, and they run the candidate. Well,
exactly.
Jimmy Darmody was going to be that guy, and so they're trying to push Nucky out of power, and so there's this conflict between Jimmy and Nucky. And then at the end of season 2, Nucky kills Jimmy. And I remember I got to that point and I was like, they just killed off the major source of conflict. How are they going to continue the series? And I stopped watching it for a while. It's like, it can't be any.
No, they always bring in a bigger, badder, nastier, they always do that.
I was like, I can't watch the rest of this. And I stopped watching it for a while. And I think it was you that got me watching it again. You were like, oh, yeah, it's still good. Keep going. And then you get that season 3, the Gyp Rossetti, one of the most entertaining seasons. This freaking evil, malicious idiot.
Oh, my God.
And it's just.
And that actor is so good. He's in something where it's like The Watcher. or something, and he moves into a big house in New England, and the neighbors are all like in his business, and he's reacting the way you and I would, like, dude, get out of my yard. And but he's a great actor.
I've seen him in a lot of stuff since then. He's always really good. So then you have Kelly MacDonald playing Margaret Thompson, and she debuted. Her film debut was in Train Spotting. She's been in Elizabeth, Gosford Park, a lot of movies, highbrow shit. She was in No Country for Old Men, another Coen Brothers connection. Anna Karenina, Terminator 2.
She's the little Irish girl, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's sexy. I like her.
Yeah. My favorite in the whole series is the girl who plays Billy Kent, Nucky's mistress.
Yeah.
The little flapper. Oh my God.
Oh my God. The whole flapper scene, you go back to like Clara Bow or Norma, I can't think of her last name, but Norma Shearer. Those chicks were filthy.
Oh yeah.
It's just, I mean, even you watch those old who was the swashbuckler with I can't think of his name. Anyway, yeah, the 20s and the flapper girls were just ridiculous.
Yep.
Who was Douglas Fairbanks with?
Mary Pickford.
See, that's another one. She was ridiculous.
Well, the girl that plays Billy Kent, and we'll get to her, is just freaking adorable. She was my favorite of all the mistresses and girlfriends that Nucky has. So, and then another just brilliant actor and great character in this series is Michael Shannon. We'll get to him. Michael Shannon, who plays Nelson Van Alden. So, yeah, Nelson Van Alden starts out as this puritanical, righteous Christian, and prohibition enforcement agent, and slowly gets. And he's another one of those characters who's like Gyp Rossetti's, very serious and intense, and unintentionally hilarious. He just keeps getting himself into these insane situations.
His whole biblical stuff, and and that actor's been in some crazy shit. He's phenomenal.
He's really good. He shows up in a lot of stuff. So Michael Shannon was in Groundhog Day, Pearl Harbor, Before the Devil Knows You're Dead, which I've been meaning to watch.
That's good. That's a good one.
The Iceman.
He's tremendous in The Iceman. That's a true story.
Yeah, he's just, and he's been in a lot of stuff. He shows up in a lot of stuff. So Michael Shannon as Nelson Van Alden. That's one who changes his name to George Mueller later in the series because he's on the run from the law at one point.
Yeah.
But just his performance alone would be worth watching this series. But but wait, there's more. Shea Wiggum plays Eli Thompson, Nucky's younger brother. He's a great actor. He shows up.
Yeah, that guy's in a lot of period piece stuff. A lot of times plays a cop. He's just a good meat and potatoes kind of actor. Really delivers every time.
Yeah.
Solid cat.
Yep. Stephen Graham is this British guy who plays Al Capone. It's funny because when you watch interviews with him, he's like, "Hello, my name is Stephen Graham." It just totally incongruous because he does such a great job as this kind of Chicago schmuck.
He doesn't fuck around. That dude will throw down. I've seen him in several things where he's in these physical knockdown, drag out fights, and you're like, God, how much of this is stunt guy or him?
Yeah.
Great
and
shit.
Then, as you mentioned, Michael K. Williams, who played Chalky White, is just brilliant. He was also in The Wire. Played Omar in The Wire. He's brilliant in both of those roles.
Oh, The Wire is just ridiculous too.
Yeah.
Chalky brings a element of, you could call it the hustle, where, these guys that were bootlegging and gambling and prostituting, it was the Great Depression. So, the farms dry up. Everybody's loading the family and trying to get out to California for a better life. And people are doing anything they can. Boxcar Bertha's riding the rails. Robert Johnson, everybody's doing a hustle. They're trying to, what can I do to generate money? And before Chalky shows up, it's just all, basically Italian American,
and Irish,
bootlegging, gambling, and prostituting. And then here's Chalky. So you get through him a window into what that side was doing.
He's basically the leader of the kind of black community in Atlantic City, and he represents all the people on the other side of the tracks. And the one thing I like about this series is it's historically accurate as far as the attitudes of the times. They don't whitewash it at all, and all there's and I was listening to someone's analysis on this on YouTube, and I really agreed with it. He said it would have been really easy to make Nucky Thompson the one guy who's not prejudiced at all back in the 20s, and you really root for him. And then, Jimmy Darmody or Gyp Rossetti or the evil racist. And he said, but that would have been too easy and it wouldn't have been realistic. So even Nucky has these shortcomings in the way he looks at things. Now he's probably less closed-minded than some of the other people, but it's because he needs the support of the black community to maintain his power.
It comes down to business. And I think even now, you're going to have opposing parties come together, and they're able to put that aside so that they can use each other to get a bigger picture. They have a common goal, and even today, people tend to mask those prejudices and just do what they have to do. And then when they go back, and I liked the part I liked too is it was just as ruthless from Chalky's character towards the white people,
Oh yeah, he didn't take no shit. There's a great scene where he kills some Klan members. So it's like
I remember that.
He did not take any shit.
Yeah, but I mean, it was just cool to see that it wasn't one-sided. That why do you guys hate me or what? They're like, yeah, okay, right back at you, fucker.
Yeah. Another great fucking character is Mickey Doyle, played by Paul Sparks. Yeah. He's just this goofy kind of sidekick henchman who works for Nucky for a while, and there's a point where he's going off working for the opposition, and then he comes back, and he's just this kind of Weasley guy, and the way the role is played is just hilarious. It's Paul Sparks.
He's got half a face, right?
No, that's the hitman. We'll get to him.
Okay.
That's Jack Harrow. Mickey Doyle's the one who's always giggling, the blonde guy who works.
Yes.
Yeah, he would have been a great Riddler in a Batman series.
Now, see, I think Mickey Doyle was based on a real person. I'd be interested to see about that because he just seemed.
I can find out right now.
He just seemed so slimy.
Mickey Doyle is a fictional character in the HBO. Anyways, the way he plays this character is just this kind of, he's really goofy, kind of giggly kind of vibe it's just hilarious. And also just, you really want to punch him in the face because he's a real idiot the whole time.
To me, he reminded me of Dan Duryea in those old film noirs. Tall redhead and always kind of laughing, and that's who I always pictured.
Well, I'm just looking at some of the stuff he's been in. He's been in a lot of independent films. Not seeing anything just amazing that's jumping out. Some things I've seen, like Schenectady, New York, and stuff like that. And then he's been in a ton of television shows, Law and Order. He's in the Mildred Pierce miniseries.
Oh, that remake.
Yeah, I thought that was actually pretty good.
Yeah, it was all right.
He was in House of Cards. That's where I recognize him from. Yeah. Yeah. Anyways, great actor and character, Mickey Doyle, played by Paul Sparks. And then the character that you were mentioning, would definitely be the next one I would mention on the list is Jack Houston, who is I think he's a nephew. He's related to John Huston. Let's establish that first.
Oh, that actor? Okay.
Jack Houston is the grandson of John Huston.
Okay.
He's British. He grew up in England, but he's John Huston's grandson, Richard Harrow. So the character Richard Harrow is this haunting. A lot of this stuff is just so intense in this show. The characters they come up with, in addition to the situations. But this is this guy who came back from World War I with half a face.
And his mask, those are accurate. They had those in the Civil War.
Yeah, I've seen them. I've seen those in real life. But he's got half a face, and then he wears this kind of prosthetic mask over the other half with a fake eye. And he has to, he eats alone because he has to take off his mask, and nobody wants to see the caved in face. But he's an expert sniper. Yeah. So he's useful to these guys, and he works for both sides over the span of the series. And it's just this haunting character. He's very lonely. There's a little bit of a story arc where some woman kind of falls in love with him because he's sweet and she thinks he'd make a good father figure for her son.
And he tries.
Yeah, it's a real kind of tragic character, but an interesting character at the same time. And he's another one of those guys he's very shy and timid because of his deformity, but he also, when it comes down to it, he'll fucking kill you.
Like, he's a hitman. Yeah. At the end of the day,
no hesitation.
Yeah.
So, a lot of great, and another maybe notable mention character. We mentioned Gyp Rossetti, played by Bobby Cannavale, Bobby Cannavale. But another one that kind of notable mention like that is Dr. Valentin Narcisse, played by Jeffrey Wright. Dr. Valentin Narcisse is a highly educated underworld figure based in Harlem. He's basically this black nationalist, early civil rights leader, but also heroin dealer, and very, very pretentious. Like just the way he talks is just always over the top, eloquent kind of.
Very well spoken. Jeffrey Wright is just a ridiculous actor. He's so good.
Well spoken in a just over the top ridiculous way. It's right. Like there's nothing subtle about a lot of these characters. They're just
I think his character in there is a caricature. And so
absolutely.
He plays it so well to speak the way he does. But I think you had people trying to overcome the stereotype. So you did have people that, he tried to speak very eloquently.
Well, I mean, part of it too is where he wasn't raised in the U.S., so he was coming from a different culture. I think that's just how he was. But the character itself is written just over the top. You have to see it. Oh, yeah. But Narcisse was inspired by a real-life figure, Casper Holstein, who was a New York City African-American organized crime figure from the Danish West Indies. And he eventually became the biggest and first massive numbers runner in Harlem. So another one who's kind of based on a historical figure. But the cast is just amazing. The actors are amazing. The characters are amazing. It really is. It really is an amazing show.
Yeah, not to belittle the show at all. I mean, it is. You've seen gambling and prostitution and bootlegging. You've seen people riding around in their 20s jalopies and stuff. But one thing you get, like I'd said earlier, is it was a clean slate, and these guys could do anything and did. And it's just such a well acted, well written drama set in the 20s, and you watch it, and it's just a great time capsule to see what you had to do. Go out to some old country house, and anything could happen. You're not safe by any stretch. They could just come out blasting. You don't know.
Yep. Yep. That's the thing about the whole organized crime. You get into dangerous professions like organized crime or politics, and you just never. Everybody's stabbing everybody in the back, and eventually it's going to be your turn.
And it's part of the neighborhood. If I walk through the Amazon jungle and I get bit by a snake, I'm in that snake's neighborhood. If you're in DC and you've got a nice frame on you with big titties, you might end up in some scandal.
Speaking of titties, I often say titties and good writing is the holy grail for entertainment. This show delivers on both in equal measure.
Oh, so, but the stories throughout are just so epic. I love that. I love that show a lot.
You bought it on DVD, didn't you?
Well, actually, what's funny is my cousin. She had all 5 seasons and was in the process of like cleaning house, and just out of the blue sent me like a text or, "Hey, what's your address?" And I thought she was sending out a Christmas card or some shit. And then here comes the complete Boardwalk Empire. And I'm like,
nice.
Jesus Christ, I'll give you some money. No, take it. And I'm like, fuck yeah.
I've watched it all the way through twice, and it just delivers both times.
Because those DVDs have all kinds of
commentary and stuff.
Yeah, commentary and special features. They show that boardwalk being built and stuff.
Nice.
And, I think you get the video for the theme song from
Brian Jonestown Massacre.
Massacre. Yeah. So cool. It's a lot of extra stuff. HBO always delivered with those box sets. You got commentary and a lot of featurettes and stuff. It was always good.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Well, that's Boardwalk Empire, kids.
Yeah.
If you've seen it, watch it again. If you haven't seen it, you have to check it out before you have to.
We didn't want to just go down, each episode, what it's about. I mean, you get it. It's more about.
We're teasing you. We're giving you a little taste, man. Just have a little taste.
It's more about all the ingredients that went in to make this solid show with the actors and the writing and the directors. So,
there you have it. So now watch it or watch it again. We got more stuff coming in the next few weeks. Our schedule is mapped out. We don't just do this stuff off the cuff, except for that Rancid episode last week. Right. But
I think we're booked out till October.
We book stuff out in advance and plan it, and your minds are going to be blown about what's coming up next. So stick around. Don't touch that dial.
That's right.
All right. Peace out.
Deuces.